What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while and in today's video I'm going to show you the easiest way that you can manage security rules on multiple Firebase projects. Now the reason why this is important is because take for example you are dealing with multiple Firebase projects, let's say two, one for development and the other one for production, and you want to be able to have security rules sync across them seamlessly. The easiest way to do that is, or the normal way, like the hard way, is when you modify a rule on, say, development, then you copy it and paste on production, and so on and so forth. But utilizing this method I'm about to show you, you'll be able to sync those rules seamlessly using GitLab CI/CD or workflows. Another alternative that you can use is something like GitHub Workflows too. Sorry, GitHub Actions can let you automatically do that. So, real quick, let's get into it. Right here, I have these two Firebase projects. As you can see, one here is called FMTG chat, and this other one is CatCM. So these are basically the two projects that I'm going to be using for this example. One is for development, and the other one is for production. And we find this handy because FlutterFlow allows us to use multiple Firebase databases for whatever environment that we are using. So this is a general example that can be applied in whatsoever case, but I create FlutterFlow content, so I'm using that as an example. So the first thing is I'll be using GitLab. If you don't have a GitLab account, you can just go and create one. It's free, or if you're self-hosting, you can use it. And you need to create a project, right? You have to create a GitLab repository where all of that is going to be managed. So we're going to have a file to keep track of the security rules and branches that will be deploying to each of the Firebase projects. Now, just to highlight to you guys, I have this complete guide I've written and I'm going to make that available. You should check my buy me a coffee and whatnot. All of this information is going to be available, and the code snippet that I'm using, for example, to run the CI/CD pipeline. So right here on GitLab, I'm going to create a new project, and let's create a blank project. I'm just going to call it Firebase rules sync or something. So let me just call it FB rules sync, just like that. And I can leave everything the way it is. And let's just create the project. Now this is going to, okay, let me pick it. I need to set a group namespace. Let's select Roderick. It should be under here as a user. Now I'm leaving the project private, everything. So I'm going to create the project, right? Because you don't want to expose your security rules anyways. Now, one importance of using GitLab is because you can own private projects for free. I think GitHub has a limitation regarding to that aspect. So we have this right here, and it's going to initialize an empty repository, right? The first thing we have to do is it's going to initialize an empty repository with a README file. The first thing we have to do is create a couple of files, right? So we're going to use a single file to manage the Firebase rules, the Firestore security rules. You can also do this kind of integration if you want to do like storage rules too. But here we're going to focus on Firestore security rules. So we're going to create a single file to handle that. We're going to create a file to handle this thing, our our CI/CD pipeline. So let's do that right away. Now, just to emphasize again, these are a couple of reasons why this is very important. So you don't have to worry about manually deploying the security rules, like copying from one project to another. So if you're managing multiple environments, that's going to be very, very difficult to handle. And also, you can modify a rule on a single environment and you forget to do it on another. That's another case that you need to handle. There can be errors when the rules, you modify a rule and it breaks. But in this case, we can manage it on, say, a development environment if it actually works before we push it up to production, right? So we can also do that. And regarding to versioning, all the rules across the multiple projects are going to be having the same version, or you'll be able to track back and see what change you made at which stage. And you can also revert back from the GitLab repository itself. All right, so let's set up the files that are needed. So in the first place, we need to create a firestore.rules file. Right, this is the file that is going to hold the rules, the security rules that we are working with. So let's create that file here on GitLab, and we can populate to something dummy, or if you have an instance of the rules that you're currently using, then you can actually copy and paste that. So I'm going to do a new file. Remember, this is on the main branch right now. Since we initialized with a README, this is currently on the main branch. So let's create a file. So I'm going to call it firestore.rules. These are the rules. All right, here I'm just going to paste this dummy snippet that we have here, right? I'm just going to paste this inside the file so that we can use it. Right here, let's keep this like this, simple. Now commit the changes. This is going to commit directly into main, so add new file, yeah, whatever. Now, once that is added, the next file we're supposed to create is this firestore.json, firebase.json file that is going to hold all of this instruction. This is just simply pointing to where the rows are. We are going to use this in our automation. You're going to see that in a bit. So let's create that file, firebase.json file. So I'm going to add a new file just like we did before and create it. Now we can go ahead and set up the CI/CD pipeline that it should follow. But before that, let's come over to settings and set up all the configuration as you can see here. Let's set up all the variables that are going to be needed by the pipeline to run. So let's come under here on general. And right here, this is a list of the variables that are going to be needed. We need the dev project ID, the Firebase dev key, the production project ID and its corresponding key. All of these are things that we need to create to be able to use that pipeline. So under settings right here on GitLab, we need to go out to under to CI/CD right here. And that's where we are going to specify those variables. So currently we don't have any variables for this project. So I'm just going to create a new one. Right, we're going to keep everything the way it is and we can start adding the variables. But now I mentioned about variables. Where do we actually get the values that we're going to there? So the first thing is we follow this guide that I have. We need this dev project ID. We're going to copy this key. So this is the key. And the value for the dev project ID should be the project ID of your development project. Right. So for me, it's this cat CM. And if I come under here on the settings and project settings here on Firebase, right, I should be able to get the ID of this Firebase project. So that's what you want to copy and use. So right here, let's copy this as the project ID, as a dev project ID. And over here on GitLab, I'm going to paste this value here. Now, it's important that you have it as visible, but it is protected. It's a protected variable, but keep it visible so that we can use it in the CI/CD and every other thing stays the same. Now, every other variable that we're going to be creating should follow the same thing. Should be visible but protected. I have it listed down here on this guide, so it should be protected and not masked as visible. So let's confirm that this is the first one, add variable. Now for the dev, the next variable is the Firebase dev key. Again, this naming is very important because that's what we are going to be referencing in the workflow. So the next variable that we are going to create, again, it should be visible and the key should be, this is this, and the value, let me remove the space. The value, where do you get this value? Now, this is service account that you are going to create on the Firebase, the corresponding Firebase project. So if you come here on still under the settings and we come on service accounts, we can create a new service account, or I have these instructions that you can follow directly from your Firebase Cloud Console or your Google Cloud Console to create a service account and give it the appropriate permissions that it needs. So another shortcut that you can do is just simply come here under service accounts tab, and then you create a service account from there. Then follow it up to your Google Cloud Console and elevate the privileges or set the appropriate rules that it's needed for Firebase rules deployment. So I'm just simply going to click here, like generate new private key, and this should give access. Yeah, I'm going to click accept generate the key. And it's automatically going to download the key that is required or that will be used. So right here, I'm going to save it, and that key has been created. I can open that key on something like Notepad, right, and copy the contents of the key. That is what is required to be used. So let's open that. So let's open the file that we just downloaded and see the contents, because this is the content that we're going to set as value for that variable that we just created on GitLab. So open with Notepad. And what you want to do is trace this corresponding key onto the Google Cloud Console. So if you come here and you just click on this link, self-service accounts, we click on this link, it's going to open us and present a list of the service accounts that we currently have for this particular cloud project. So as you can see, this is the contents of the file. I'm just going to paste that here. And this, remember, this is for the development project. So I'm going to paste that value inside this value on the variable that we're configuring here on GitLab. So I've pasted all the contents in here, and I'm going to add the variable. Now, this is what I wanted to show you on the console. After we follow this thing to the Google Cloud Console, that we see the list of uh, service accounts that we have. So we can trace these security rules, like using the client email or whatnot. Can trace the security rules to the service account here. Sorry, can trace these service accounts that we downloaded using the client email to point to this. And now here, all of these permissions that is created automatically and assigned with is not needed. We need to edit that and give it just the restricted permission that it needs to edit the Firestore security rules, right? So that's very, very important so that you maintain granular access to the services that the security rule needs. So all of this can be removed. We don't need all the storage, whatever thing needed. So I'm going to show you the most important one that we need, which is just the Firebase rules admin. So I'm going to add the Firebase rules admin and then remove all the other ones. So that's as simple as in this thing. So here you can search for Firebase rules admin. And when that comes through, we select it. And we can delete all the other rows that it currently has. And when that's done, all we have to do is save. Now, without saved already, we have all the configurations that we need for the development projects, right? Now we have to do the same too for the production project. So we create the production project ID, we create its own key, we generate its own key, give it the required role and whatnot. So I'm just going to go behind and do all of that. Now I've added all the other variables for production key. Again, just follow the simple steps, or you have this document. Check my buy me a coffee too for the documentation. Now the last thing that we have to do regarding the configuration is to come under here under repository for the settings. Remember, since we are making some of these keys, all of these variables protected, we also need to have like a branch that are protected, right? So currently we have just the main branch, which is definitely protected. So if you see protected branches here, it is there. But before we actually do that, let's head over to the code itself and then add the last file that we need. Therefore, the actual file that handles the CI/CD, right? Now let's create the last file called .gitlab-ci.yml. Now this is the file that holds the configuration for all our pipeline, right? Our continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline. So let's create that file. I'll stick them again, just like we did the other. Again, if you want to push this locally from your PC, maybe you get the repository, clone it and whatnot, you can definitely do that, right? But I'm just doing it on here just to have everything visualized. All right, so this is the content of our file. We've created a file and I just copied and pasted it from this guide here. This is available that you can check out. And right here, this is the explanation of it. So first thing, we are pulling like node 18, right, in all of them. So for deploying for development, this happens automatically on when there is a new commit, right? The stage when there's a new commit. And when there's a commit to the develop branch. So it pulls install like Firebase tools, it pulls the credentials I will set and then set a service account or JSON, whatever. And this thing, it pushes to the Firebase, right? It deploys the rules. And when that is done, it notifies us like all of this logging that we are doing. So, but for production, we need to confirm it. That's how we have this thing down here. Let me just say when manual, I can see this different here. So manually need to confirm it. And this listens on the production on the main branch. So we are going to listen on the main branch and to push on the development environment, we listen on the develop branch. So let me commit this real quick. New file, yeah, you can name the commit whatever thing, but I'm just going to leave it like that. And then the next thing, remember, we don't have the branch yet. We don't have the develop branch yet. So after this commit, that we have everything initialized, all the variables, the configuration and whatnot initialized, we need to create the develop branch and then start making changes from there. Now, the reason why we are separating this, it's optional. You can keep it all on the main branch and you make changes and push on all your Firebase projects at once. But the reason I'm separating it is because I want to first make the change and let it go to my development Firebase project. After I've tested it, just like how we should have everything, then I confirm it before it pushes that same security rules to the main production Firebase project. I hope that makes sense. So right here, what I'm going to do is instead of creating a new file, click on this plus sign again, and it's going to come a new branch, right? So I'm creating the branch, and the branch should be called develop. Now, the naming on these things is very important because that's what we're using in that configuration. So we are creating the develop branch from main, and that is all the configuration that we need to set up. Now, remember how I spoke about protecting the branches since we have some of those variables that are set to be private. We need to also do that here. So I'll come here under protected branches. We need to make sure that the development branch that we just created is also protected and not just the main. So as you can see here under the branch rules, I have these two branches, both main and develop. They are under protected, right? All right, now I'm just going to add something down to this comment again. I say, let's add a comment here. I say, this should work now. Again, remember, these are the current rules that are here on the development project, right? We just added this. So if we deploy this and the workflow actually runs, we should add the, see this addition. That's the same thing that's going to do if you modify any security rules and whatnot. So I'm going to commit this change. I'll just accept it like that. Exit first order rules. And when all of that is committed, the CI/CD workflow should start running. The pipeline should start running. All right, this is it. We've pushed. And you can see here, if we click on this thing, you see the pipeline that is running. We can click to actually see the job in action. So this is the deployed dev. And all we have to do is just give the pipeline some time to run. And when it's done running, our security rules should be updated. Now, after that is done, we need to now merge. If like the rules are tested and it's valid on our development environment or development project, then we need to merge back into main. So after waiting for a bit, this is it. Everything is successful. Now you can see that the rules file that are completely successful and whatever thing that's been deployed only to the dev project, right? We come here on the dev project, this cat.cm. Right now, the last deployment was September 29. I think if I refresh, we should see an update for I think October, which is October 3rd today. And now the new comments that we added onto that security rule. All right, so you see today 7:45 a.m., right, which is today's date. And now you should see this addition that we added here. Now all of this is coming from GitLab. That way, if you are making a change to your security rules, it can be pushed across multiple projects. So I'm going to come over here, and I'll create a commit back into main. Let's see how main is also going to deploy. So that's as simple as you can create it manually, or you see this pop up here that say create merge request. And when you click on it, you'll be given instructions to follow. So let's create the request. If you want to write a description or a title, you can do, which is a good practice, but I'm just going to do everything like that. And I'll create merge request and confirm that. Now, if you noticed, I switched to a different project test. I'm just highlighting just in case you see it. Test Firebase rules. That's because I had the rule set up and a couple of things going on. I wanted to show you in action, but all the simple instructions follow. So let's create that request, the mesh request onto main. Now, when that request comes in, we actually need to manually confirm that we want to deploy those rules. Now, you can remove all of that restriction, all of that break from the by editing the CI/CD deployment file or pipeline file. You can edit all of that and remove it. But I just find this to be much more like a good way of doing things. So ready to merge, I'm going to merge. So it's merging everything, like all the changes that we have made under the develop branch. So this is the job that we need to actually play it to run. So merge branch develop into main. All of this, we need to run the pipeline so that everything should also be carried over to main. Now, this is the main project here. Currently, we don't have that change that we did, like this should work now and whatnot. We don't have it here in the security rules. This is the current state of the rule, and last edit was of September 24th, right? This is the current state of the rule with all of this. So if this pipeline completes its execution, we should see that update. Right now, we started it and it's actually running. Now our deployment job just got completed, and if we check over here onto the project itself, let me refresh and show you. We should see that additional comments that we added to the security rules. And right here, as you can see, we now have this addition, added this should work now and whatnot to the security rules today at 7:53 p.m. Anyways, a.m. Anyways, that's it, guys, for this thing. Again, this guide will be available on my Buy Me a Coffee. You can check it out. I might have to publish it as a blog or something, but it's very important, and you can use this to adapt to the way that you need your workflow to work or your pipeline to execute. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to make more content and I'm back. And let's get going. Be sure to like the video, leave a comment, and let me know what you think. See you around. Thank you. And also let me know down in the comments if you have any other questions or anything or any video ideas that you'd like to see around FlutterFlow or no code tools. You're welcome. Have a great day. Bye bye.